from Sailor Pluto. Tessa here. I believe Tessa. Yeah, that would be my name. And today I'm going to talk about, this one thing that happens. Well, I wouldn't say it was a bad thing or anything, since it's not. But anyway, so all right. So there are some folks out there who have Linux. And Linux is like the third out of the three running setup layout upmake that a reckoner can run off of. Besides Microsoft Windows and Apple Macintosh OS. Well, there's also Google Android and Apple iOS, but that's more for, I don't know, hand reckoners and wireless far speakers. And there's also Google Chrome OS, which is on that too. Between Microsoft Windows, Apple Macintosh OS, and Google Chrome OS, those are the three that, well, most desktops and laptop reckoners are going to run off of. Well, more of them are going to run off of Microsoft Windows, and a very few other half are going to run off of Apple Macintosh OS, and another little small half are going to run off of Linux, and some are going to run off of Google Chrome OS. Now, why I'm talking about Linux is that Linux isn't like it's not like a computer not like a reckoner business has a deal with Linux to put Linux on their reckoners. Not that I'm aware of. Unlike a lot of reckoner businesses got deals with Microsoft or Smallsoft for Windows. Right now it's being Windows 10. Now, Apple makes their own reckoners so they would be putting their own setup, upmake, and layout on it, being Macintosh OS. And Google Chrome OS makes their own. Well, someone makes it and then they put the running layout upmake on it, being Chrome OS. With Linux, one probably has to go to the Linux webstead. Then they got to either download the free Linux or buy the Linux, because there's probably that, and then unput it. And a lot of folks that do this are usually folks that don't like Apple Macintosh OS, don't like Microsoft Windows, don't like Google Chrome OS, whatever grounds. If they somehow are lucky enough to get it on any one of those reckoners, they bet they need to like it, because it's going to come up with its own hang-ups. Now, a lot of folks will say that Linux is more strongholded from evilware and badware than Microsoft Windows and Apple Macintosh OS. Well, that's kind of true, and at the same time it's not true, since Google Chrome OS has its sandbox, and so does Linux, even though there are evilware and badware on the Linux than there is on Google Chrome OS. Another thing is that a lot of folks, bitch about how with Google Chrome OS you can only work with Chrome tools or anything that came from the Google Web Shop. Well, that's the same thing with Linux. You can only work with Linux tools or any tool that came from the Linux Web Shop, and that's it. It's not like Microsoft Windows and Apple Macintosh OS where you can work with every tool there is, as long as it was made for the latest Microsoft Windows, being 10, the latest Apple Macintosh OS, whatever that latest one is. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. And everyone is going to tell you which one they believe is the more greater one. I'm not going to tell you that, because that's more of a thought and belief. There's no truth to it. But at the end of the day, there are some folks out there who will say that Microsoft Windows is the greatest one to go with, or at least now they'll say that. Back then they didn't actually say that. Back then they would shit over it. But now with the way Microsoft Windows is now, they'll say that. Other folks will say that it's Apple Macintosh OS. Others will say it's Google Chrome OS. Some folks will say that it's Apple iOS, that it's Google Android, that it's Samsung OS, and that it's Amazon Kindle OS. But at the end of the day, and some will say it's Linux. But at the end of the day, it's what you like, what you want to work with, and at the end of the day, which it is what it happens to be on your reckoner. You know. So it is what it is. You know. But there are some upsides to Linux. As I said before in this film, Linux does have a sandbox like Google Chrome OS. Now, how good the Linux sandbox is, I don't truly know. You know, but it does have that going for itself. And if some folks out there think that they still got the Penguin or whatever you want to call it, no, they don't anymore. They have a new likeness for Linux. Now, at the end of the day, it is what it is. And I think that Linux is a good running setup, upmake, and layout for anyone that wants to work with it. I do not want to work with it. I'm happy with Smallsoft Windows, you know. But if someone out there wants to work with Linux, that's their own business. Good for them. But I think it's one of the good ones. All right. So that's it. I'm Sailor Pluto Tissa, and hope you like this film.